I'm Dr. Jon Dabach, and today on this little podcast video thing that we're doing, I'm going to go over why women should learn how to manipulate their husbands. It's a lost art. I know it's controversial to talk about manipulating your husbands, but the truth is, growing up, I saw a master at doing this constantly, and that master is my mother. She knew how to present things to my dad in a way where he thought it was his idea. And that created such a symbiotic relationship. And women used to do this pretty regularly. I mean, think about 50 years ago or 100 years ago at this point, where women didn't have financial independence typically, and women didn't have a society where men were told to be open emotionally to their wives. The only way for them to get some footing in the relationship is to learn how to manipulate their husbands a little bit. Now, I'm not saying you should manipulate your husbands for evil. I'm saying you should learn how to manipulate husbands for good, for the benefit of the relationship. If you're questioning if the reason you're wanting to manipulate your husband is for your own benefit and not for the benefit of the relationship or the family or for his benefit, then don't do it. Don't do it. But if you're sure that your husband, I'll give you a very clear example. Your husband's gaining a tremendous amount of weight. The doctor said that if he doesn't stop, he's going to have liver issues and heart issues, and he just can't seem to help himself. So if you're going to manipulate him to think that, oh, I should try to buy a rowing machine because that sounds like fun. If you can get that thought into his head, like the movie Inception, where he thinks it's his own idea, fantastic. Why wouldn't you do that? In fact, I know a lot of doctors where if you're good at it with strangers, they'll pay you to teach them, because really people get in their own way a lot of the time. And sometimes it's for the benefit of the relationship. So it might not just be for him, but things like date nights. If he's resistant to date nights and you're able to manipulate him in a way where he's excited about date nights, maybe because there's a little more physical activity that happens at the end of date nights because that's important to him, or because it's activities that he actually likes, or because it's social and you bring other people in the dates, like a double date, whatever the manipulative tactic is that gets him excited about it, it's good for the relationship. Nobody is going to argue that having dates with your spouse is harmful for the relationship. If having dates with your spouse is harmful to the relationship, guess what? You have a bad relationship, right? But the idea of being able to manipulate him for the good, for positive things, that's what I'm focusing on. So let's go over some reasons as to why learning how to manipulate is really a good thing. So one, it really maintains the harmony in the relationship. I can't tell you how many people call. It used to be, as a marriage counselor, used to be that everybody, without exception, was calling because they want to work on their communication. That was the term that people use. Communication, communication, communication. Occasionally you get someone where there's some sexual issues and they don't say that on the initial consult. You kind of have to work into it. But now 20% or so of people calling say they have too much conflict. They don't use the word communication. They talk about conflict very openly. And that's a sea change. And the reason it's a sea change is women aren't learning how to manipulate their husbands. If they did, the conflict would just be a little bit of a challenge where they have to regroup and learn how to manipulate. And I used to watch as my mom and my aunts and her girlfriends would talk. As a little kid, they would talk about their husbands and how frustrated, and women would give each other advice on how to manipulate their husbands. Well, why don't you do this? Well, you have lost a little bit of your figure. Why don't you exercise and then tempt him sexually? That's part of your power as a woman. You're the gatekeeper. I mean, these were conversations I overheard a little bit. I mean, not as graphic as I'm making them out to be, but I've heard these kinds of conversations growing up. And you know what? All those people, every single one of them in my mom's friend group and the aunts and uncles, they're still married. I don't know of any divorces in this group because the women learned how to work and function and take those the potential conflict that everybody's calling today, and make it harmonious through the manipulation. So that's one big reason. The second one is it strengthens the relationship. If you're able to guide your husband towards decisions that benefit the relationship, manipulating your husband will benefit. It'll strengthen the relationship. It's efficient at conflict resolution. Not only are you avoiding conflict, you're getting through the conflict faster. If you're able to say, "Oh, but I thought you wanted to do this. If you don't, like that's fine." And the man says, "No, no, no, no. I want that. I want that." Problem solved much faster. Learning that manipulative tactic just speeds things up. It also encourages positive behavior. Instead of bashing heads through the conflict, you nudge your husband towards healthier habits. And guess what? Positive behaviors like the eating healthier that I mentioned before, those are good for him. And those positive behaviors will benefit both of you over the long run, because at the end of the day, healthy habits are healthy habits, and they're good role models for your children. They're good for the relationship. So really, there's no downside there. Another big one, and this is huge, is it boosts the man's confidence. I will tell almost every woman in my care as a patient at some point in the therapeutic relationship, at some point, I will tell her that her job, her number one job, is to protect and stroke her husband's ego. When men are confident, when they feel secure, when they feel like they're on top of the world, they show up better as husbands, they show up better as fathers, they show up better in their work. Confidence is huge. And if you're manipulating a man so that he doesn't feel like he's compromising, but being a leader and taking charge, even though it's your idea, you are giving him a gift. And that gift is confidence, a sense of self-worth, a sense of ownership and leadership. It's all good. Also, your goals will start to align. You will have a shared sense of goals. Because why? Because you're manipulating him to have the same goals as you. As long as you're doing it for good, I have no problem with that. Your communication will get better, right? Because you'll know to avoid certain trigger words. If you learn how to manipulate, part of manipulating is learning the landmines that exist in the relationship. If you have a husband who's a little bit iffy and touchy about talking about sexuality, and okay, that's a landmine. If I'm going to manipulate him, I got to step around it instead of right on it. Or, his parents might be a trigger in the way you talk about his mother. If you learn how to talk around it instead of stepping on that landmine, you will improve your communication. Along with confidence, I think it's an important enough point, an important enough difference to make it its own category is empowerment, right? Men don't just feel self-confident, but they feel empowered. They feel like the leader. So I might have missed that word earlier when I was talking about confidence, but it's a separate thing. Having a sense of self-confidence, I know who I am, I'm confident in who I am, but having a sense of empowerment, there's a little bit more drive there. It's a little bit more oomph there. And it is different. I've met many men who are confident but don't feel empowered in their relationship. And having a man who is both confident and empowered, you watch, that man will run circles around other men who don't have that in their relationship. They'll be the leaders in their social circles. They'll be fantastic fathers. If you build up that man's confidence through a little bit of manipulation, right? Sometimes manipulation can just be giving him a compliment he doesn't completely deserve. Right? If he looks okay, right, in the morning because he brushed his hair as opposed to just leaving it messy, and you say, "You are so handsome when you brush your hair," that's manipulative. But you know what? That's boosting his confidence. He's like, well, maybe I'll brush it every day. Maybe I'll get some product in my hair. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Again, it has to be done with tact and with a good intention in mind. And guess what? If there's no conflict because of the manipulation and you're connecting better, guess what another benefit is? Stress reduction, not just for him, but for you, right? Because you're not fighting. You're not fighting all the time. He's getting what you want. He's getting what he wants. You guys have a great relationship. And now the stress of a bad relationship evaporates. It just dissipates. And the subtle art of manipulating people is one that has a storied history. So know that you're standing on the shoulders of giants. I believe that presidents in this countries and monarchies in other countries had women whispering in their husband's ear in a way that got them to really listen. If you like this content, I really urge you to like and subscribe and watch another video or listen to another podcast. I'm Dr. Jon Dabach. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.